The red light turns on. The sound engineer signals. A producer counts down from 3, and then it's live. Millions of viewers at home have no idea that in just moments, they're about to witness events unfolding in real time. No scripts, no edits, no safety nets. Just the raw, merciless truth of life caught by cameras that never blink. It was May 23rd, 2016, when 34-year-old meteorologist Cameron Blake set up his live broadcast truck on a lonely stretch of highway outside Moore, Oklahoma. Known for his calm presence and deep understanding of extreme weather, Cameron had become a trusted voice for thousands who turned to him when the skies grew dark. Conditions were ominous that day. A massive supercell was developing, one that radar suggested could produce a tornado. The sky had taken on that sickly green hue that only Midwesterners recognize, the color of danger. Cameron's SUV, equipped with sensors, cameras, and a satellite link, was parked facing east to give the audience the best possible view of the storm's approach. In the passenger seat sat 28-year-old Peter Webb, his camera operator. Peter wasn't as comfortable with storm chasing. He often joked that his role was to point the camera and pray. As the winds picked up, Peter hesitated. "Cameron, maybe we should pull back," he said, watching the sky twist into rotating clouds. But Cameron's eyes were fixed on the radar and the horizon. "Not yet," he replied. "This is textbook supercell behavior. People need to see this." Back in their house, Cameron's wife, Jennifer, 7 months pregnant, watched his live feed, listening to his voice describe the growing storm. She'd always been proud of his courage, but that afternoon, she felt something different, a deep unease she couldn't explain. At 4:42 p.m., Cameron's voice steadied as he announced, "We have touchdown." The camera showed the dark, wedge-shaped tornado forming just over a mile away. He narrated as debris began swirling into the air. For 15 seconds, his tone remained calm and professional, a man doing his job under pressure. Then the funnel started moving toward them. Fast, the wind screamed around the vehicle, and branches and shards of debris hammered the SUV. Peter yelled, "We need to go, now!" But Cameron was still broadcasting, describing wind speed, direction, debris fields, until the tornado's edge slammed into them. The SUV rocked violently, glass rattled, and a sudden thud filled the cabin. A 4-foot wooden board, ripped from a destroyed house, struck the driver's side window. The tempered glass exploded. The board splintered. One jagged piece struck Cameron in the head with tremendous force, crushing his skull, and another tore through his collarbone, severing a major artery. Inside, the SUV turned chaotic. Blood splattered the dashboard. The camera, still live, captured fragmented images, rain, screams, spinning debris, and static. Peter swerved, trying to escape the storm's path while shouting Cameron's name. There was no response. For 2 agonizing minutes, Peter drove blind through the rain until the winds calmed. He pulled over and tried to stop the bleeding, pressing his jacket to Cameron's shoulder. But it was hopeless. The blood loss was catastrophic. Cameron's breaths came in uneven gasps, then stopped completely. The live feed continued broadcasting until a horrified producer finally cut back to the studio. Viewers had just witnessed the final moments of Cameron Blake's life. Emergency crews reached the site 20 minutes later, too late to save him. Jennifer gave birth to their daughter, Sophia, 11 weeks later. She filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the network for pressuring crews to operate too close to the storm. She resigned soon after. On November 8th, 2017, in Toronto, another tragedy played out live, this time in a brightly lit morning television studio. 41-year-old Lydia Grant had become a local favorite for her warm personality and mastery of classic French cooking. She was appearing on a small regional lifestyle show to demonstrate crêpes Suzette, a dish famous for its dramatic flambé presentation. The crew had debated whether to skip the open flame segment, but Lydia insisted, "It's not real crêpes Suzette without fire." She wore her signature pearl necklace, a gift from her late mother, and a silk blend burgundy blouse under her apron. As the cameras rolled, Lydia explained the process with her usual charm. She poured orange liqueur into a copper pan, held it above the gas flame, and tilted it gently. A ring of blue fire shimmered around the source, beautiful and mesmerizing. Then it happened. The loose cuff of her blouse brushed the flame. Within a second, the silk ignited. She gasped and dropped the pan, flaming liquid splattering across the counter. The crew froze. Her sleeve was an inferno. Lydia screamed, trying to pat out the fire with her free hand, but the flames spread to her other arm. Her co-host, Derek, lunged forward with a towel, but hesitated, afraid of making it worse. In that moment of panic, the fire found her hair, which had been sprayed with hairspray. It ignited in a flash. Her screams turned into ragged, choking gasps. The heat was unbearable. Even the camera operators stepped back instinctively. Derek finally threw the towel over her, but it caught fire too. Another staffer grabbed a fire extinguisher, but struggled to remove the safety pin. By the time he managed, Lydia was collapsing to the floor, her face and arms blackened. Paramedics arrived within minutes. Lydia was still conscious, whispering hoarsely, her skin blistered and peeling. They intubated her on the floor before rushing her to the burn center. She died later that afternoon from severe burns and respiratory failure. The station suspended all live flame demonstrations indefinitely. The crew underwent trauma counseling. Though the footage was never officially released, a short off-screen recording circulated briefly online, a horrifying few seconds of real terror that no one could forget. On September 22nd, 2019, tragedy struck again. This time 28 stories above Portland, Oregon. 47-year-old Dominic Hayes, a seasoned structural inspector from Canada, was conducting a safety review of the Riverside Tower project, a 40-story building under construction. The site had already raised red flags about poor welding quality in several steel connections. Dominic had been assured those issues were fixed. He trusted the paperwork. Accompanied by 2 engineers and a photographer, he began inspecting beam joints on the 28th floor. The morning was quiet until a deep metallic groan echoed through the site, a sound like metal tearing under weight. It wasn't normal. Then, everything collapsed at once. A single failed weld caused a chain reaction. The northeast corner of the floor gave way, dropping like a trapdoor. Dominic had no time to react. He fell through twisted beams, slamming against steel supports before crashing through to the lower levels. A drone filming the inspection caught the chaos from above. A violent shudder, dust, and the blur of falling metal. When the dust cleared, Dominic was gone. He fell through failing steel and debris, sustaining catastrophic internal injuries, and was pronounced dead at the scene. The footage, meant for documentation, became evidence in the investigation. 3 workers also lost their lives in the collapse. The city rewrote its structural inspection and welding certification standards after Dominic's death. On November 23rd, 2017, the city of Philadelphia prepared for its annual Thanksgiving Day parade, with bright balloons, marching bands, and smiling faces, all broadcast live. 29-year-old Phoebe Larson was one of the lead handlers for a massive 52-foot-tall cartoon balloon. She loved the parade, volunteering every year. Her parents had flown from Minnesota to watch her lead the team. But the weather that morning was a problem. Winds reached 22 miles per hour, with gusts over 30, dangerously close to the limit for balloon operations. Officials debated cancelling, but decided to continue. Phoebe's team guided the balloon carefully down Market Street. Then, without warning, a strong gust lifted the balloon skyward. She radioed parade control, "We've got a lift!" But a second gust, stronger than the first, caught the balloon from the side. It tilted violently, ropes straining. The front left rope snapped. The tensioned line whipped downward like a missile. It struck Phoebe across the face and neck, breaking her jaw and crushing her throat. She fell hard onto the asphalt. Blood spread quickly as the crowd screamed. The broadcast cut away, but by then, the damage was done. Paramedics reached her within minutes, but the head trauma was catastrophic. She was pronounced dead that afternoon. Investigators found the guide ropes were 2 years past their replacement date. The parade suspended giant balloon features and cities updated safety guidelines. Cities nationwide updated their wind safety and equipment guidelines, a change written in Phoebe's name. February 16th, 2015. Dallas, Texas. A controlled demolition was set to bring down an 11-story office tower. For demolition engineer Grant Nichols, this was his 68th project. Every charge had been carefully calculated to collapse the building neatly inward. Hundreds watched from a safe distance as cameras rolled. The countdown echoed. 3, 2, 1. Explosions rippled through the structure, dust billowed, and then something went wrong. The south side collapsed perfectly, but the north side didn't follow. Instead, it leaned, then toppled sideways towards the safety perimeter. Grant, watching from a nearby trailer, realized in an instant that people were in danger. He ran toward the barricades, waving and shouting for crews to retreat. The tower groaned and then gave way completely. As it fell, a piece of rebar, 12 feet long, 60 pounds of steel, was hurled through the air like a spear. It struck Grant across the back of his neck. He suffered fatal injuries and was pronounced dead at the scene. The collapse sent shockwaves through the demolition industry. The cameras that had been broadcasting the building's fall captured Grant's final moments in the distance. Later investigation revealed that a set of defective firing connections led to misfires, causing the uneven collapse. His death forced sweeping changes in demolition safety standards. The final tragedy came on July 9, 2016, high above the French Alps. 33-year-old Jetta Howard, a Norwegian alpine rescue expert, was part of a live documentary team covering a mountain rescue near Mont Blanc. The mission was to extract an injured German climber stranded on a cliff. Conditions were marginal, with gusty winds buffeting the helicopter. Jetta was lowered on a steel cable to reach the climber. She secured him into a stretcher and radioed the crew. Then, a violent gust slammed into the helicopter. The aircraft jerked upward, the cable snapped taut, and the carabiner failed under dynamic load after a violent swing. In an instant, she was in freefall. Viewers watching live saw only a brief flash, her figure tumbling through the air before the control room cut the feed. She struck the rock face at over 50 miles per hour, bounced, then fell again. She died instantly upon impact. The inquest heard her carabiner had weakened from years of repeated use. Her death led to stricter gear inspection laws across European rescue agencies.